Hello and welcome back to the Joyful Soul Creates. Charlotte here, and today I had a really difficult time coming up with a title for my video because I was trying to think, what techniques am I showing in this? I wanted to make a card for MFT's Summer School for day one, which is all about making a visual triangle. So as you can see, I'm making a visual triangle with my flower stamps. But I didn't really want the theme of the video to be visual triangle because, of course, MFT recently made their own video all about that, and that's probably way better than what I'm going to be showing you. Nonetheless, I wanted to share my card with you, and there are some techniques, so I hope you will stick around to the end. I particularly like how I did the sentiment, which is the last thing, so do make sure to keep watching to see that. As I said, I'm trying to make a visual triangle, so I arranged my stamps in a triangle and also worked out where I want my sentiment positioned. I wanted to make a kind of corally colour and I don't have that, so I layered Tiki torch and party dress together, doing both as second generation stamping to try and make that coral colour. I'm not sure it really worked, but I tried. And then I wanted to add more colour to the flowers, and I wanted it to be kind of variegated. So I'm using a sponge dauber to apply the ink to the flowers. On the largest flower, I'm putting Tutti Frutti just around the outer edges of the petals. Do make sure you don't close your MISTI lid on the lid of your ink pad. That's not a very clever thing to do. And then I also put the Tutti Frutti on the centre of the smaller flowers, so those are going to be red going out to the coral on the tips, whereas the large flower is red on the tips going to the coral colour in the centre, in theory. It ended up that the largest flower and the medium-sized flower are more kind of reddy pink overall, and if any of them can be called coral, it's the smallest one, but that's kind of more orange than coral anyway. But I tried my best, and that's the important thing, trying your best. Using the sponge daubers is a really good way to get this variegated look if you want to have the colours fading from one colour to the next on a solid stamp, which also does help these solid stamps to look more interesting than just stamping them in a flat colour. There's nothing wrong with stamping them in a flat colour, but this does add extra interest to it. You do want to be using a stamping tool for this, and I love my MISTI. I use it for all my stamping. Even if I'm not stamping with it directly, I put my card that I'm stamping on into the MISTI and use that as my platform when I'm using an acrylic block, just because it's a really good surface for stamping on and will help your stamping show up more clearly. But I very rarely use my acrylic blocks. I pretty much always use the door of my MISTI, and as I said, that's exactly what you want for this kind of technique, because you do want to be able to repeatedly stamp in exactly the same place, which means you don't want your card moving either, which is why I have mine butted up in the corner of the MISTI, plus I have a creative corner on the top left corner of my panel holding that in place, and my bar magnet. I'm just being a bit extra there, making sure nothing moves, because I want this to be absolutely perfect, which in crafting nothing's perfect, but you know. This stamp set that I am using is called Plentiful Petals, and each of the flowers has two parts, and when I'm done with the petals I will show you the second part to each of the flowers. This stamp set is retired, but I did want to be using MFT products for the summer school, of course, and as much as I love MFT, I don't seem to have very many of their products. I literally have this stamp set, which is just flowers and leaves. I have a hooray die, some banner dies, band-aid dies, and a coffee cup die. That's it. So the only sentiment I have is the hooray. Well, actually the coffee cup has you, me, tea, coffee as words in it, but those aren't very helpful for many cards. So most of the cards I'll be making for the summer school will use the hooray die, which you can see here. I have cut the hooray die directly into my lovely stamped panel. This can be a bit intimidating, but I knew I wanted to do this Eclipse technique, There you go, there's a technique I'm showing you, the Eclipse Technique. So that meant die cutting into my panel. When you do this, make sure you do not lose the inside parts of your word. So the insides of the letter O, the letter A, the swoop of the H, the swoop of the Y, you want to keep all of those. The places where it's just white, like the inside of the swoop of the Y, doesn't matter as much if you lose them because you can just cut it again from some more white card. But the places that you have stamped on, you definitely don't want to lose those. So I just put some post-it tape behind my word and held all the pieces in place with that. And I also die cut 3 of the hoorays again in some blue card, and I'm going to use those to give my hooray some dimension and some extra interest from the side as well by having it in blue. You could of course do it in the same white you use for the card panel if you prefer, but I thought the blue would just be interesting. So I used my Nuvo Smooth Precision pen to adhere all of those pieces together and stack them up and have them nicely layered together. And I'm going to use a blue card base. I think it's fun from time to time to have a card base that is not white. I think my little helper that you maybe see in the top of the screen briefly approves of me using colourful card bases from time to time as well. So I will just cut that down to A2 size, so that's 8.5 inches by 5.5 inches and scored at 4.5 to make an A2 card. And then I just adhered the panel onto that. I left the post-it tape on the back of my word just because it was easier, and it's a very low profile tape anyway, so it's not going to add any bulk to speak of to the back of my panel. I like to use a large piece of double-sided tape that covers the whole of the panel. Actually this time it's slightly less, but it's practically the whole of the panel. Peel back one corner rather than taking the whole of the backing off, and then carefully get it into position. Press down the corner that has the backing peeled up, and then peel the rest away, and it will be nice and straight and perfectly even and pretty and beautiful and lovely. That's the theory anyway. Okay, so the sentiment. I think it looks lovely as it is, but I also thought I wanted to add some shine to it. If I'd been thinking about this ahead of time, I probably would have clear heat embossed the top layer before adhering it into place. I did not think about it ahead of time because I rarely plan ahead, or I mean I do, but only to the extent that I think, I'll make a visual triangle card with this flower stamp set, and that's it. So I was trying to think, what could I do to add some shine? I thought I would add glossy accents. And then I was thinking, I could put some Nuvo drops on the card. How about doing both at once, in a way? So I'm using the Nuvo drops to cover over the sentiment. These are Sea Breeze Nuvo drops, so they are blue, but they're very translucent blue. The white areas will show up as blue, but the coral and orange areas will show up as they are underneath the Nuvo drops, as in they will show through the Nuvo drops. These Catherine Paula inks do react to liquid though, so the stamped areas that have the Nuvo drops over them now will be kind of softened. They won't be as crisp, but I think that's kind of pretty. Once I'd carefully covered my entire sentiment with those Nuvo drops, I went in with a pin. This is the same pin I use for unclogging my glossy accents, and I keep it taped onto the edge of the glossy accents bottle. And I'm just going over the whole sentiment and just neatening up any edges that the Nuvo drops gone a bit over. They were blocking the swoop in the O, for example, and also just drawing the Nuvo drops across if I've missed any areas. And this did take me a little while just because I was being a bit of a perfectionist about it and trying to get all the places correct, although I did miss some areas on the H, but that's fine. It doesn't matter. As much as I try to go for perfection, it's not the end of the world if we don't achieve it. It's just a card. It's pretty anyway. It doesn't matter if it's not perfect. I have to keep telling myself that. Done is better than perfect. Also, once I'd finished tidying up with the pen, I did tap the card onto the top of my Nuvo bottle. This is just to try and help those drops even out. So that's going to be my submission for day 1 of the MFT Summer School, and I will be back tomorrow with my submission for day 2, which I have already made and already filmed, and I had a lot of fun creating, so I do hope you'll come back to see that. Products are linked below if they're not retired like the stamp set is, but I'll try to find a link for it or something similar. Let me know in the comments what your favourite flower is. If you're not yet a subscriber, you can press the button on screen now to subscribe. Please do press the like button to let me know if you liked my video. There are a couple of other videos on screen you can watch if you want to see more from me straight away. Otherwise, I'll thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again in the next video. Bye!